idea.
Well, okay. What do you get when you cross these big trees with a bunch of dwarfs in the mountains? You get The Hobbit 1, An Unexpected Party. It's the first of the 3 films that Peter Jackson is doing, and we're going to give you a detailed analysis right now. We're going to cut it apart. We actually saw it in 48 frames per second, and it was a joy to see it, actually. So let's begin our review. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms. The Hobbit. Our review of The Hobbit. Let's talk about The Hobbit. The first chapter in the book is called An Unexpected Party. In the movie that we just saw, it's called An Unexpected Journey. So here's some of the review points that we'll talk about on this. Keep in mind, warning, red alert everybody, that this will contain some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you may not want to watch the review. Or you can watch it after. Please put comments down below. Put comments down below. We'd like to hear what you think as well. First, from the story itself, let's talk about the plot. The plot, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote this book back in the 30s. And he basically started it on the basis of telling stories to his children. So there was a very relaxed, almost sleepy time, adventure suspense story, not horror and gore by any means. A very simple story about dwarves on a journey with a wizard and kind of an odd character that they call the burglar, the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins. This film, on its plot, covers that story basically. However, there's one observable point that we noted in talking to several of the people at the theater after the production of the film. They all agreed on this one point, which is interesting, that based upon what they knew or remembered from the story, that Peter Jackson and the company there with the cast and the crew, or especially the screenwriters, they took the plot line, instead of making it a simple, more children's story, probably along the lines of C.S. Lewis's The Narnia Chronicles, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They ratcheted up the plot and made it definitely a lot more dramatic and big and epic and almost overwhelming at times. And I wonder if perhaps they ratcheted the plot too much up. They cranked it up too much. For in the book itself, the plot covers, in this first film, covers the first 6 chapters of the book. And in these chapters, the party takes place, and they do that with great comedic style in the beginning. And you almost get endured a little bit to, obviously you remember Gandalf and Bilbo a little bit, and it takes a little getting used to a new Martin Freeman as Bilbo. But I believe he does a really, really good job from a character development standpoint, which is the second topic as we review this film. Characters, they're so important to get right, and so many films don't get them right, or they're not believable, or they're just miscast by the casting people. In this case, you have a lot of returning characters. You have Frodo and you have Bilbo in the opening scenes of the film. And of course, there's an endearment there with Hobbiton and the wide scoping visuals that you see in 3D on that film. So that captures the essence in the beginning, which I would call the prologue of the film. But going back to the characters, as you're introduced to all of these dwarves, and there are a lot of them, some people probably lose track of who, what, where they come from, but there is one dwarf that you make instant connection with, and that is the character of Thorin Oakenshield, who is played by, very brilliantly, I believe, by Richard Armitage, and does a really, really wonderful job at acting his character out as kind of a thwarted king who's not allowed to rule his people in his land. Now, in the book, you find that a little bit different. So they make wide and small dichotomies or changes from the actual book storyline in with the plot of the film. So these characters, they take this journey and they run into, I felt that in the journey itself with the Battle of the Wargs, even though they're mentioned in the first 6 chapters, they're not kind of, I don't know, exploded into as these really dark, ominous creatures. They're scary, yes, in the book. They're wolf-like, yes, in the book. But boy, in the film, they're like bigger than life, and you find, at least I found that my palms were getting wet, and my heart was racing a little bit more from fear. There definitely was, they cranked the fear level way up. And especially on the character, the big grand orc, Ozog, they really cranked his character up. To me, all unrealistically. He did ride the gray warg, I believe, in the book, but I just sensed and felt that they, again, this whole aspect of ratcheting the film up to another level, taking it outside of just a children's story, which is what J.R.R. Tolkien meant it for. So I wonder if perhaps some of the more purist Tolkiens would probably say, you know what, it was disappointing in that regard. And I totally understand where they're coming from. And as a Tolkien fan, I share that same sentiment in probably every area except from the new technology area and the visuals. From the characters, they're believable, but they look earthy. And they act from an earthy perspective, and I kind of was hoping that we would get a little bit more of a otherworldly feel, and that we would be taken into this fantasy land like we were in the trilogy. I believe that same type of spirit and that same type of energy needs to be brought into these films because they're written by the same guy in the same world of Arda. So that takes care of some of the character development itself. The music, Sir Howard, a wonderful job again with the music. I believe the music was, if you will, an additional character, as if there wasn't enough characters in the film already. But Sir Howard Shore did a magnificent job again using the strings and his orchestrational and creative ideas, capturing the essence from the various metal and more coarser and more negative and minor keyish feel of the tones in the orchestra that he conducted at Abbey Road Studio in the summer and early fall of 2012 for this particular film. It definitely captures the spirit, the essence, and the pacing of the film, which I believe is a little bit too fast in most places of the film. The music, outstanding in almost every aspect. Sounds terrific. And the mix, the strings, combination with the woodwinds and the brass instruments and the other coarser metallic instruments, very, very good mix overall. Brilliant job by Sir Howard.
3D in general was pretty well, like it's done pretty well.
All right.
Well, now let's talk about the visual aspect of the film. The visuals in 3D, amazing. Unbelievable. For those of you who love 3D, in my estimation, the very best 3D ever. 5K, 4K, 2K, 1K images at 1080p in 3D with these polarized glasses that they give you. And this is a special copy of the 3D glasses that they issued at the theater that we watched them at. And you get to keep them. They're great little souvenir tools to remember this first experience on this particular journey. But the visuals, stunning. From the opening sequences, the credits are even placed in 3D space. Wonderful job for the crew and the post-production crew. The visuals are amazing. See the film, if nothing else, see the film for its 3D incredibleness and the visuals, the great panning, scoping, incredible landscapes of New Zealand. The miniatures that were done on the set design is the next piece. In the set design, an incredible job. Impossible to tell for me, at least at this first viewing, impossible to see the difference between the miniatures and the normal scenes. Just a brilliant job at set design. And the costumes, the hair and the makeup, even though you could tell at times that they were made up, especially like this time with Gandalf's nose. I noticed that his nose was definitely made up and it was plastered on or put on or glued on to Sir Ian's face to be Gandalf. I didn't notice that in the DVD or in the Blu-rays of the trilogy, but this time in this particular production at 4K and 5K, pretty easy for me to tell that his nose was made up. But the visuals, the locations were, in a word, incredible. See the film on the basis of that. The set design, again, with the miniatures and the incredible advances over the last, it's been 11 years since the Fellowship of the Ring, folks. It's, again, a leaps and bounds in terms of the lighting, in terms of the set design. So we're talking about it from a movieistic perspective, if that's a word, cinematic perspective. A brilliant film to see. It's going to take several times to let it soak in. I get the sneaking suspicion that the 3D side is going to take some getting used to, Peter and Weta, as well as Sony Entertainment, all the other companies that are involved. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to with the 48 frames 3D high definition. The common of the people, the many people that I talked to over the last several days now, all of them thought that they liked it would like it a lot more in 24 frames and in 2D. I myself, 48, awesome, great. The action, the swinging of the swords, the sheening and the reflections and the flashes from the swords and the flames from the trees near the end of the film, incredible. And to me, the best scene is the eagles. You've got to see the eagles and fly with them, because you really are flying with them in the final scenes of the film. That's my favorite film in 3D. It's my favorite scene in my favorite 3D film that I've ever seen. The music was great, the characters, the story. I felt that the pacing, here's some of the negative sides that I hope that they change, that they watch reviews like this and can change these as we go along. And that is the pacing, number one. Change the pacing up. There were these wider gaps in pace, slow to fast to hyper fast. Here the film felt a little bit raced all the way through, from the opening frames all the way to the end. Felt a little rushed. So from a pacing perspective, a little too much. For most people, I think the 48 frames is going to definitely take some getting used to. Hopefully there'll be some more films that are coming out. We saw some previews of some really incredible films that are coming out. But hopefully the audiences worldwide will get a little more used to this, because I truly see this as the way of the future. 3D 48 is the wave of the future. There's no doubt about it. Peter, you made the right call in that area. The entertainment companies that support this, I totally commend you. That's exactly the way we should go. It is a lot better experience, and it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, though. So be patient with the audiences, and I think we'll come around as we move further and further into 48 frames with just some incredible footage and films like The Hobbit 1, 2, and 3. Next year, December 13th, we have The Dissolution of Smaug. I hope you join us with that journey. For D&K Productions, I'm Kurt, your host. Enjoy the film, and we'll see you at the movies, huh? All right. In 3D, no less, eh? Bye.